When it comes to rear-wheel drive compact luxury sports sedans, every manufacturer seems to want to chase after BMW. That's been long considered the benchmark for decades, and Genesis first started entering the space with the G70 back in 2018. If you guys remember, this car shares an architecture with the Kia Stinger. However, because Kia discontinued the Stinger last year, that leaves the G70 the only vehicle left in the Hyundai Kia portfolio that still uses this rear drive architecture in a sedan body style. Now for 2024, Genesis has made some slight changes to the G70, mainly around the interior with a new dashboard design and under the hood, where it now gets a standard 2.5-liter turbo 4, making 300 horsepower, giving this car the most standard horsepower in its segment. So today we're actually out here in Phoenix, Arizona to finally drive the 2024 G70, and the big question I want answered, for those of you who are still in the market for a compact luxury sports sedan, how does the 2024 G70 continue to stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So before we start talking about the exterior styling of the 2024 G70, I thought I'd pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing, because that's one of the biggest changes for 2024. Genesis has replaced the smaller 2-liter turbo with this bigger 2.5-liter turbo, which we also used to see in the base version of the Kia Stinger. Now underneath this hood, Genesis continues to offer a choice between two different engines. Obviously, there's this new 2.5-liter gasoline direct injection turbocharged 4-cylinder that makes 300 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque. It all goes out through an 8-speed automatic transmission with a conventional torque converter, so not the wet dual clutch system that we see in other Hyundai products that use this engine. And in terms of the fuel efficiency, it's rated at 20 in the city, 28 on the highway. This model is the all-wheel drive version. It's an extra $2,100 for all-wheel drive. Rear-wheel drive is still going to be standard. You can get this car with a mechanical limited slip differential, whether you go for rear or all-wheel drive. Again, it shows the sports sedan intentions of this vehicle. And then with the fuel economy being at 20 city, 28 highway, that is recommended on premium. This car has roughly a 15.8 gallon fuel tank. You're looking at around 350-ish miles of range on a full tank. Now, Genesis doesn't claim a 0 to 60 for this car. I've seen it in the low to mid 5-second range for the Kia Stinger when I first tested this vehicle, or first tested this engine a few years ago. If you guys want more power, there's still the 3.3-liter V6 that's a twin turbo that offers up to 368 horsepower with the active exhaust, 365 without it. I'll save that for a different review. I've already driven that engine a few times in the 2022 model, so we're focused primarily, of course, on this new 4-cylinder engine. This vehicle should have a top speed of around 155 miles an hour, and as this car sits, it weighs in at just around 3,800 pounds. The V6 will add roughly 200 pounds of extra weight that'll be over the front axle. So again, if you want the best handling model, you may want to consider going for the 4-cylinder version. But let's go ahead and close up this hood and talk about the exterior styling. Now, this color that I'm showing you is a new color. I believe it's called Kawaha Blue. It's a beautiful sapphire-like blue that has some gorgeous metallic fleck in it. The G70 got a big refresh back in 2022. It still pretty much looks the same, adopting their new styling language. This color is $650 extra. Genesis says the color itself was inspired by views that they've seen in Indonesia, which is, again, a really cool aspect. The blue itself is gorgeous. I love the Genesis logo. It kind of flows nicely with the big, bold Genesis crest grille with the kind of metallic chrome, dark chrome that you see for the accents in the grille with the actual diamonds in the grille itself. You have the signature quad LED headlights. You can see with the LED daytime running light, LED turn signal, the double line look that just looks fantastic. Although I said quad headlights, but you can see clearly on the G70, it's just a dual headlight setup. You have LED low and high beams. Down here, you can see no fog lights. There are some fake vents, some functional vents. There's the radar sensor for the adaptive cruise control. And overall, I think that I personally prefer the pre-refresh look of the G70 as opposed to this look. It just hasn't warmed up to me. I think that this design theme looks better on their SUVs and their bigger models. But let me know in the comment section below if you guys like the look of the refresh model or the pre-refresh model. Now, moving around the side profile, you can see the G70 is the right size for the compact sedan segment. It has a wheelbase of 111.6 inches long. Its overall length is around 184.6 inches long. So this is about the same size as something like a Lexus IS or a BMW 3 Series. It's around 10 inches shorter than the Kia Stinger when it was out. And this car is also around 10 inches shorter than the Acura TLX, which is kind of like a tweener size vehicle. They didn't change the overall dimensions. It has still that characteristic line. They call it like parabolic line that goes along the entire side of the vehicle that adds depth. It adds kind of a aggressive look to it. And then you can see the wheels. These got an update for 2024. These are the 19-inch wheels. Every model has 19-inch wheels. They're standard on the Sport Prestige model. that you're seeing here. You can see they kind of have like a machined and graphite gray look to them. I think they look better than the 2022 model that I first tested a couple of years ago. You can see Brembo brakes are also now standard on every G70. You can see they're red painted when you guys go for the sport design package versus being silver painted. This car has an all independent suspension with struts up front, a multi-link design at the rear. There's also this functional vent right here that helps to create or relieve some of the air pressure that you have in the wheel pockets or the wheel wells when you're driving the vehicle down the road. And then overall, you can see here, I really like the profile of this car. I think from this angle, it has that classic front engine rear drive design. You have power folding mirrors, which are body colored, integrated turn signals, of course. The vehicle has a wide style sunroof that's included when you guys go for the Sport Prestige package. It's not a full panel roof, but it certainly looks a little bit larger versus the standard sunroof you get on the non-Sport Prestige. You can see the window trim has like a black dark chrome finished look to it. And then looking from this angle here, you can see the design for me personally is instantly recognizable as a Genesis. You have the same elements here that's carried over from the front with the kind of dual light design for the taillights. As you can see, they're full LED turn signal. You have this kind of spoiler. It's kind of like a duckbill spoiler. It's integrated into the trunk lid design, which I like. And then for 2024, all G70s now get a standard dual outlet exhaust. So there's really no way to tell that this has the V6 or the 4-cylinder, because this used to be reserved for the V6, but now it's also on the 4-cylinder. So you can't really tell either way. I believe the V6 will have like a 3.3 badge here, but you can see that's the all-wheel drive badge. It almost looks like a four-wheel drive. It spells out Genesis in the back. And then overall, you can see the taillight design. I think personally, I like the pre-refresh model look, but I've already made that pretty clear from looking at the front of the vehicle. Now, opening up the trunk, Genesis does offer a power opening and closing trunk, I believe only on the V6. And you get around 10.5 cubic feet of storage space back here, which is usable, but it's about the same size as like a Lexus IS, the current one. You can see the seats do fold down in a 60/40 manner. And then if you look underneath here, there is a temporary spare tire at least, so Genesis doesn't make you deal with a fix-a-flat kit or run flat tires. So let's go ahead and move on to the interior of the 2024 G70. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the newer fob that we first saw on the Genesis GV60, their all-electric vehicle. You can also get a black or a white color fob. It is not color matched to the actual vehicle. Genesis says they really love the design of this because it kind of almost looks like a piece of jewelry. I don't know if it looks like jewelry, but it definitely looks good. I love how it has the same diamonds in the actual pattern, which matches the grille. You have your usual lock, unlock, open up the trunk, and panic, and then you also have remote start on the fob. Genesis does not offer their smart park feature, but you do get a version, their newest version of their digital key function, where you can use your smartphone as a key. Previously, you could only use it with Android phones. Now, Genesis says they've added it with Apple iOS phones as well, which is a nice upgrade. Now, as I approach the door handle, you can see traditional door handle here. There's a little area here where you can touch that will lock the door for you. This car does not have an auto walk-away lock or unlock feature. You can see the mirrors are electrically folding. Touch the back of the door handle, that will unlock the door and unfold the mirrors for you. Now, the Kawa blue exterior of my test car is complemented by this beautiful fog gray two-tone premium Napa leather interior with the contrasting stitching and piping. Genesis has always done really beautiful interiors with nice looking seats. These seats are also heated and ventilated, which is standard equipment. The seats themselves adjust in, I believe, 12 different ways. They don't offer the ergo motion massage function, but you do get two-person memory here along with some genuine aluminum trim. You have a soft touch injection molded plastic over this part of the door panel that looks good with the aluminum trim, aluminum accented door handle, padded armrest here, perforated leather here, window controls. They're one touch up and down for all four. They have a nice high quality tactile feel. I love how they're metal accented down here. There's a little bit of storage. It's hard touch plastic. And then the Lexicon premium sound system that comes standard on this upper Sport Prestige trim. But let me go ahead and get inside and try to get away from that noisy train, of course. As I get in, it has a low step-in height because, again, this is a sport sedan. As I shut the door here, the door has a nice solid sounding thunk. I wasn't expecting to find a power tilt telescoping steering wheel. You typically don't find that in this segment, but starting the vehicle up, you can see this vehicle is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid, so it has a traditional starter noise. And the one thing that I was surprised is I thought Genesis would put their fully digital 12-inch display here, but it's got an actual 8-inch display where you have a half digital, half analog for the speedometer. which Genesis says they did that on purpose because they wanted this vehicle to have more of that traditional look and feel because it's a sports sedan. The steering wheel itself hasn't really changed. You have paddles to control the 8-speed auto, no flat bottom design, contrasting stitching and perforated leather. I do wish the rim was a little bit thicker. The wheel itself is heated if you guys go for the all-wheel drive trims and up, or if you add all-wheel drive, it also adds a heated steering wheel, which is a nice touch. The tilt telescoping function has a good adjustability and range. The horn, it sounds nondescript, but appropriate given the size of the vehicle. You have some buttons here to adjust the cabin lighting, open up your fuel door there, pop open the trunk. And then in terms of the materials on the dash, you can see it's got a soft touch injection molded plastic on the upper portion with faux stitching. You've got real stitching and real leather on this portion of the dash with some aluminum trim. All G70s come standard with the 10.25-inch Genesis infotainment system with, it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it's still connected via a wired connection here via USB-A. So it kind of shows the age of the G70 a little bit, but you can see I like how the screen takes up, or it goes almost to the outer edge of the actual screen itself, but the screen is starting to look a little small for me for some reason. But remember, this is still an upgrade versus the 8-inch display that you had in a pre-2022 model. I like how Genesis still uses buttons and knobs for the volume, for tuning, for the dual zone climate control. And then this right here is the new touch sensitive screen for the climate control system. So previously you had traditional hard buttons. You still do have some hard buttons. You can see there are some buttons here for defrost, for the auto function. But then if you want to go into the other functions, you now have to go into the screen here, which is fine. Your heated steering wheel controls there. Your cooled seat control is here. You can also adjust the airflow there. So that looks very nice. It also has haptic feedback. This is essentially taken from the other bigger Genesis models, which I think looks really nice. It looks in place with this interior. You have more stitching along the side of the center console. You have a wireless phone charging pad here. You have one USB charging port there, an actual power outlet right there. And then you can see here, this controls the 8-speed auto. If I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your backup camera, with parking sensors and trajectory as well. So that looks pretty good. I was surprised to see this car doesn't have a full 360 camera. So that's something that I suspected this car would have. Perhaps the V6 has it. But again, the camera quality resolution is fine. And for a small car, you don't really necessarily need a full 360 camera. Your drive mode selector is here. It's an actual knob. You can see there's 5 different drive modes from Eco, Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, which turns off the stability control. And then there's a custom setting. So we'll try out the different drive modes later on in the driving scene. Push that button here. You can see there's your backup camera. So you can push that button to kind of access your backup camera. There's your electronic parking brake, cup holders here. And then you can see nice padded center console. Open this up. It's not the deepest center console, but you have another USB in there. And it offers a usable amount of storage. The seats, like I said earlier, premium Napa leather. They're heated and ventilated. You have a 12-volt power on the driver's side, and then on the passenger side here, it's also the same thing. It's a 12-volt power, so Genesis doesn't skimp there. I also like how they put the little controls here if you want to adjust the seat from the driver's side. The seats themselves have decent bolstering, but they're not like a super aggressive sports seat like on some competitor cars. Open up the glove box, you can see it's damped and it's lined with felt. It's a bin style. It offers a good amount of storage, which is nice. You have an auto-dimming rear view mirror. Genesis does not offer a digital camera mirror. A cloth headliner here. There is some LED map lighting in here and some LED ambient lighting at night. I'll have to wait until I get one back home to show you guys what that looks like. I like the wide sunroof that's included with the Sport Prestige package. You can see you can still open this up entirely and vent air, which is nice. It's not a full pano roof, but this is still better versus just going with a standard sunroof. There's also a power retractable shade. If you guys want to have a shade, it's nice that Genesis still kind of gives you the option of a shade as well, for those of you who don't want too much sun. But overall, the interior still feels very high quality. It has some older tech in it, but I think if you prefer the older tech instead of the overwhelming stuff, this is going to be nice. The sound system also sounds very good, so keep that in mind if you guys want to go for this car. You may want to check the box for that Sport Prestige package. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat and show you guys the space. Now, I will say that the back seat on this car is not huge, but in this class it typically isn't. This car offers around 34 inches of legroom back here. You can see these seats. They have the same premium Napa look with the contrasting stitching and piping. Door panel materials here are still soft touch with aluminum trim, padded armrest here with the perforated leather, which is nice. And then getting back here, let's go ahead and show you guys the space. It's definitely on the tight side. You can see this is where I have the seat to drive. As I shut the door, you can see there's decent foot space, but this is definitely not for very, very tall folks and whatnot. You can see there's a large hump here because remember, this is a rear drive architecture where it needs to have that drive shaft space. There's rear seat air vents, which is nice. 2 USB-C charging ports. No heated rear seats. You do have 2 storage cubbies. There's an armrest here that folds down to give you 2 cup holders in here. And then in terms of the headroom space, if I lean back, you can see my hair gets pretty close to the ceiling. So if you guys are over 6 feet tall, this back seat's gonna be a little bit tight. This is probably why you wanna check out the midsize G80 instead, but overall, as you can see, the backseat is pretty much on par with other vehicles in the compact sport luxury space. So even though the Genesis G70 may not be the best-selling vehicle in the Genesis lineup, this still is about the third best-selling model here in the US. So obviously this is a very important vehicle for Genesis, and it really makes me happy to see because it shows that Americans are still buying sedans. So I was kind of surprised when I didn't realize that Genesis didn't finally put the bigger 2.5 turbo 4-cylinder into the G70 until this year. So of course we're starting off our drive in this model because we've already had a chance to drive the 3.3-liter twin turbo V6, which is a fantastic engine. But this is the model that Genesis says has the most horsepower in the class. We are driving, or more standard horsepower in the class. We are driving an all-wheel drive version. I'll switch the drive mode here into sport, and let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. We'll brake torque it. All right, so we just got in our first run 5.97 seconds, which is a pretty respectable time. It's pretty much right on par with all the other competitors out there that also have a 2-liter turbo 4, although this now has a bigger 2.5-liter turbo 4, and it certainly makes a difference. I mean, 300 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque. This transmission also is the 8-speed automatic transmission. It's in-house developed 8-speed auto, which I think does a pretty good job at shifting and picking the right gears. For the most part, this powertrain is very smooth, and it also is very torquey. As soon as I put my foot down here, the transmission is super responsive. The car just kind of takes off with authority, and it also has a pretty nice sound. Now, the sound is actually enhanced through the audio system. You can actually go into the infotainment system and mess around, play with the settings to see, if you can get a slightly more throatier sound if you guys would prefer. But overall, what I like about the G70 is this is still one of the more engaging sports sedans out there. Now that the Kia Stinger is gone, Genesis obviously is the only vehicle, or the only manufacturer in the Hyundai Kia portfolio to use this architecture as a sports sedan. Remember, it kind of shares the platform with the G70, the SUV. But let's go ahead and try it here one more time. I want to see if we can get a little bit better time on a more flat surface here. All right, 5.95 seconds there. So that time I think is pretty good. We're also on a very level surface. In terms of elevation, we're at around 1,200 feet above sea level. So I suspect this car could be faster. I mean, I feel like I tested this in the 4-cylinder Stinger. It was in the mid 5-second range. But I'll have to wait until I get one back home to test. I mean, that time should be plenty fast for most. I mean, if you're going to compare this car also to like a Tesla Model 3 single motor, this will be pretty similar in terms of acceleration. The V6, keep in mind, will probably shave about 1.5 seconds off that time, which again is probably faster than anybody will ever need. But overall, the chassis of this car is pretty much the same. Remember, this is a front-engine, rear-wheel drive architecture. You can get a limited slip differential, a mechanical one. It actually is even included if you guys go for the all-wheel drive version. There's also a drift mode, supposedly, in the all-wheel drive system, but not on the 4-cylinder. You can only activate it if you guys have the V6. So kind of keep that in mind. The V6 is still going to be the one to get if you guys are looking for maximum performance. But Genesis has said in the past the take rate between the 4-cylinder and the V6 has always been kind of like a 55% 4-cylinder, 45% V6. I expect that number to kind of stay very similar, maybe even go up a little bit more in favor toward the 4-cylinder, because the 4-cylinder in general just has plenty of power. I think for most people, the fuel economy aspect, the feel of this engine, also the sound. I like the sound and I like the transmission as well. I think that the overall feel of this car is a little bit more pleasant to me versus some of the 2-liter turbos that you feel and have driven in some of the competition. Put our foot down here. With the car in Sport Plus, it actually shuts the stability control off, or kind of puts it into a sport setting. Traction control is kind of still on as well, but the car just has a very nice setup for the suspension. It feels really solid. The ride is also not bad. For a sports sedan with low profile tires and 19-inch wheels, this car also reminds you that it's a luxury sedan as well. I mean, I can even switch the drive mode here to comfort, and you really notice the steering lights up, the suspension gets a little bit softer, and the car also quiets down. So the active sound noise enhancer kind of goes away. and you get a sense that you're driving also a luxury vehicle, because Genesis has to kind of play that dual personality, that dual role, and I really like the overall feel of this car. Now, in terms of the seats, this seat is not kind of like, it's a little bit more aggressively bolstered versus, you know, some other competitors, but it doesn't feel like a super aggressive seat like what you'd find in like a BMW M product car or Audi RS product car or Mercedes AMG. But they are very comfortable. The seats are, these are the premium Napa leather seats. They're heated and ventilated. Genesis does not offer their massage function, their ergo motion massage on this car. Don't expect to find that because it's kind of on the low end of the totem pole. But on a longer trip, I drove this car for about an hour, and I found the seats to be very nice. The steering wheel also is, I like the leather, how it's perforated, but I do wish the rim was a little bit thicker. I kind of also wish that Genesis would do like a flat bottom steering wheel design. Visibility out of this car is also good. You can see out of the fronts, the sides, the rear pretty well. No digital camera rear view mirror, and also no blind view camera mirror. Genesis doesn't offer that on this car. They also don't offer the fully digital gauge cluster. And this 10.25-inch display, while it is nice how it goes out to the outer borders of the screen, it is starting to look a little bit small. And remember, if you guys have a pre-refreshed Genesis G70 back from like pre-2022, you had an even smaller 8-inch display, which definitely was looking a little bit too small and narrow. But overall, you know, this segment of vehicle I've always particularly loved because I love compact luxury sports sedans. I think this is one of the few out there that is still very much in that space because it is the right size. It has also a nice weight to it. This car weighs in at around 3,800 pounds. The V6 is around 200 pounds heavier. So kind of keep that in mind. If you guys want the V6, you're going to have to deal with the extra weight. And also the front end of this car feels a lot lighter. So that's where this one may actually be the better handling car. But again, the V6 is still out there. And I'm really happy to see that Genesis says that almost 50% of customers in the past have taken the V6 option because, you know, everyone in this class tends to get just a 4-cylinder turbo and they lease it. But I'll have to wait until I get one back home to test out the fuel economy. On a full tank of, or almost a full tank of fuel, it's showing 283 miles of range. I did show like 26 mpg when I was driving out here to this track area, but again, I'll have to wait until I get one for a full week to do a full fuel economy test. I believe premium is recommended for max performance with this engine, but you should be able, I think you should be able to still put regular in it. So overall, the G70 is still a really nice driving sports sedan. It feels obviously, you know, like it belongs in the class. I mean, you're going to compare this car to like a 3 Series, a Lexus IS, Mercedes C-Class, Audi A4. That segment in general has been dwindling, but it's nice to see that Genesis still offers something that is rear drive or all-wheel drive, that offers the right amount of power, that offers the right amount of luxury. The interior is a little bit on the cramped side, especially if you guys are taller drivers. But overall, I think that over the last 5 years, Genesis has really done a good job at keeping this vehicle still fresh, and it still represents a really nice choice in this segment of vehicle. All right, so the Genesis G70 is excellent out on the road, but what about on the track? And to show you guys the track capability, I'm here at the Apex Motor Club just outside of Phoenix, and we have switched over to a rear-wheel drive V6 version with the mechanical limited slip diff. And I gotta tell you guys, the first thing I'm noticing right away is the extra power and the sound that you get from this V6. It's fantastic, and it also comes with an active exhaust that just sounds incredible. I have the car in Sport Plus right now. That's what Genesis told me to put it in. Put my foot down, floored here. You can feel, you know, it makes a good sound, but I actually kind of wish it was a little louder out on the track. I can kind of barely hear it, but ooh, those Brembo brakes really working hard. But this car's suspension setup is adaptive, and I'm noticing in Sport Plus it definitely wants to get a little bit more sideways because the stability control is in its off setting. But what's crazy to me is this is a sport luxury sedan, but you know what? It has a pretty big emphasis on sport here. You can feel a little bit of understeer there. I put my foot down. The stability control is kind of still on slightly. The back end wants to step out. Foot is hard to the floor here. You can definitely feel the weight of this engine. It feels a lot heavier versus the 4-cylinder up front, and that's probably why it pushes a little bit harder. But I gotta tell you guys, for a sport luxury sedan that has that dual personality, this thing still can hustle just right out of the box. The engine has plenty of torque. The steering also, it's a little bit numb. I would like to see a little bit more feel for the steering, but it's not horrible. The car in front of me, you can see there's a little bit of body lean. I can see it kind of step its tail out slightly, but You know, even though the stability control is off, I can feel it still kind of reining in the power slightly, which is good because you want some kind of interference a little bit, but not too much to where it's intrusive. I can feel the back end wanting to step out a little bit. Very fun, very impressive. And it really just makes me happy to drive a vehicle like this, because I know everybody tends to buy SUVs, but there's still something about a sports sedan. There's something about driving a vehicle that's low to the ground that just gives you that level of engagement and feel. You're just not going to get that in an SUV. I love the fact that this car is rear-wheel drive also, and you can get it with all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive also still includes a mechanical diff. There's a little bit of tire squeal. We've got these Michelin Pilot Sport 4 summer tires. This is where I could use a little more power here, but you know, Genesis doesn't have a full-blown N performance division. They should, though. Got up to 115 on that straight. Ooh, hard on the brakes. The pedal definitely is starting to go a little bit closer to that floor. Oh yeah. Oh my God, I'm definitely enjoying this car. I've forgotten how good this chassis can be. I mean, because I've never taken a Kia Stinger out on a track like this. Oh, there we go. The back likes to step out there a little bit. I definitely can feel the front end starting to lose grip. And I like how the steering at least tells me it's losing grip, but that's kind of where you feel the extra weight of the V6. It pushes hard when you're really starting to push this vehicle out to its limits, which I imagine most owners aren't going to push it this hard in its limits. Those Brembo brakes are definitely getting a workout, but remember, this is still a 4,000-pound vehicle, so you're kind of going to feel that extra weight. But I just love how it's really easy to get this car sideways. I'm not the best track driver, guys, so again, trying to drive track and speak on camera isn't always the easiest thing to do, but this car, I gotta tell you guys, is just an absolute riot. It is something that, you know, makes me sad, because vehicles like this are just kind of becoming few and far between. It's hard on the brakes there. Turn in, a little bit of understeer again. Hard on the brakes there, kick the rear out. Yes! Foot is to the floor here. Come on, this is where I could use a little more extra power. Man, I just forgot how good this chassis is. It really is impressive. And it kind of shows that, again, Genesis hired the right people. That's Emmy Hall behind me, who got a little bit too sideways. Uh-oh. Oh my God, what a fun car. I mean, if you guys are looking for like the Korean BMW, it's this car for sure. This car is the Korean BMW, and I'm here for it. I'm absolutely loving it. So even though the Genesis brand has only been around in America since 2017, this has had a very strong growth in those very short time spans, because as you guys know, the company has been killing it with a lot of new product. In fact, it really shows in terms of sales. Genesis sales have been up basically year over year, and the G70, Genesis tells us, actually accounts for about 20% of the total sales in the North American lineup. Genesis managed to sell a little over 13,000 units in 2023, making this the third best-selling vehicle as expected. It's behind the GV70 SUV and the GV80 SUV as well. So after spending some time with the 2024 version, it's pretty easy to see why people continue to buy this thing. This is still one of the best handling sports sedans that you can buy out there. It's also the right size vehicle. It's not too large, it's not too small, although the interior does feel a little bit small at times, but it kind of comes with the territory when you guys are looking at the compact luxury SUV space. That new 2.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder, Genesis says the old 2-liter accounted for about 55% of sales. I wouldn't be surprised to see the mix go to like maybe a 60% sales, because that engine should have enough power for most. I mean, me as an enthusiast, I probably would still go with the V6 option. That's going to shave off around a second and a half in terms of 0 to 60, but you may want to consider this if you guys don't care about getting the quickest acceleration, and you should theoretically get the better handling with this, and of course get better fuel efficiency. Now, in terms of the design of the vehicle, I still prefer the pre-refreshed model, but again, that's a personal preference. But This car in general, I think, still stands out. It's instantly recognizable as a Genesis. It still has one of the nicest interiors in the segment, and it still has all the decent tech features, although some of the competitors again have gone to even more impressive systems. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Genesis is going to do for the next generation model. Now, speaking of which, if you guys are looking to purchase the 2024 G70, this vehicle is already in dealership showrooms. Genesis says they started arriving a couple of weeks ago. And the base price of this vehicle has definitely gone up because of the additional standard equipment and the additional power. You used to be able to get a G70 for under $40,000. Now these start at around $41,500. So it's gone up about $2,000 to $3,000. That seems reasonable given the fact that now you get standard 19-inch wheels, Brembo brakes, navigation, that extra power, almost 50 more horsepower under the hood. If you guys want all-wheel drive, it'll cost you an extra $2,100, so $43,600 is the base price for this model here with the 2.5 liter engine. Now, my tester here has the Sport Prestige package. Now, I'm seeing a discrepancy on Genesis's consumer build site as of this filming, where it seems like the Sport Prestige package doesn't cost any extra. That to me is a little surprising, because if you add that package, which it gives you these different set of wheels, the red painted calipers, the upgraded Lexicon sound system as well, the wide sunroof, for example, the premium Napa leather, typically that option on the V6 on their consumer site is around $4,400 more. But as of this filming right now, with destination charge, because they don't charge you for that Sport Prestige package on the 4-cylinder, this model here comes to an as-tested price of $45,500. That seems like a total bargain to me. Really, in actuality, if they charge the $4,400 extra like they do on the V6, this would put it in at just under $50,000, which also still is a reasonable amount of money. If you guys want the V6 is going to cost you around $8,500 extra. So it's a big jump to go from the V6. And if you compare the V6 to the 2023 version, Genesis has increased the price by around $4,000 to $5,000 extra. So again, this car used to be among the cheapest. Now it's priced along the same as its competitors. It kind of sucks because inflation, everyone's kind of raising their prices. Genesis is kind of doing the same thing. All in, if you guys go for a fully loaded version, Sport Prestige, all-wheel drive, 3.3T, you're looking at around $58,000 to $59,000, which is the same price that I tested in something like the Acura TLX Type S, which also comes with super handling all-wheel drive. You can also go for like a Lexus IS 350 for around $50,000, or you can go for an IS 500 for around $62,000, $63,000. So again, there are a lot of choices out there, but I do think that Genesis still has a pretty strong offering here, especially if you guys are looking for strong value, a strong warranty, strong service, of course, and a very intriguing design mixed in with excellent handling and a really luxurious interior. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2024 Genesis G70 in this 2.5T turbo engine. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.